So the world's on fire, and because of that, Are we ready?
Yeah, let's start.
Okay.
Let's just do action.
I am Carrie Syczylo, and I am running for House District 60. Today, I would like to invite you to watch our first podcast to get our campaign started off on the right foot so that we can drive change. And I have my friend Danielle with us today, Danielle Cooney. Danielle is a member of the Monrovia community, and she has children that go to the Monrovia public schools, and she advocates for a lot of great things. And she's a dear friend of mine, and also she is a participant and a volunteer for our campaign. So today, Danielle, let's talk about how do you think we got here?
How do we get here? I don't think there's any one thing that we can blame, but I think the biggest thing that we are failing at is getting people out to vote.
Me too.
I worked the primaries at the Monrovia Christian Church just a couple weeks ago, and there were so many people that didn't understand what the primary was, and why we have a primary. There were, and it really starts in our high school, because we had high school kids coming in that were 18 that wanted to vote that couldn't because they weren't registered correctly, or they weren't registered in time, or they didn't know they had to register. And I think we need to do a better job at getting people out to vote. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or I agree with you, but if you don't vote, this is where we go. This is where we happen.
I think I may have mentioned this to you, but Michael and I took the campaign bus down to Martinsville on a couple Thursdays ago. They have a car show down there. And so because Michael is interested in cars, we thought we'll try to go there at least, a couple times a month, and that'll be a good little outing for us. We can do some campaigning, talk to some people. So this guy was taking a picture of the bus, and he recognized me, and I went up and spoke to him and asked him the things that he was worried about. And I said, "Are you going to vote?" And I'm not being stereotypical at all, but he did seem like he was kind of having some hard luck. Things weren't going so great. And I said, "Are you going to vote?" And he goes, "Me?" Like he wasn't worthy to vote. And I said, "My gosh, yes, you. Your voice is your value." And so I know we have to keep working on that, but I do think that is partly why we're here. And I can lead into McKaylee, our oldest daughter.
I think that society has, especially for women, has ingrained us to believe that our voice doesn't matter and our voice doesn't count. And so when we talk to people about voting, well, what's the point? Nothing changes. My person doesn't get elected.
Is it going to make a difference?
Is it going to make a difference? Then, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of the Electoral College and what that really does, what it's supposed to do. But when it really matters, when it really comes down to the nitty-gritty of it, our society has told not just women, but really all people, that your one voice does not matter. And we have to get people to understand that your voice actually does matter, and you can make a change. And the more voices we have combined, the more change we can make.
I think it is disheartening that Hoosiers rank second to last in voter turnout. And I think Hoosiers are, well, one, I believe we have more value than that, than to not show up and participate in civic engagement. But I think foundationally, we have such a problem within our government. On a daily, I've thought about this so much, because I am a bottom-up thinker, and we need to change things from the bottom up, honestly. Maybe that's why I'd be a good candidate. But how many times in a week or in a day might we hear, "Oh, screw our government," or we can't trust the government. And, I mean, our government's main job is to protect its citizens. So until we realize that our problems are so severe and these times are so dark, that we are really trying to save our democracy. And it really doesn't matter. I mean, of course, in the grand scheme of things, it matters because we do have a two-party system, and we can't deny that. But, we know history zigzags, and we faced hard times before. I think the thing for me personally that is the most difficult to swallow with all of this is humanity. And, when we look back through history and writings, we know that we're always trying to be progressive, even when we face challenges. And in this moment in time, we are not being progressive. We are going back 70 years with rights, voting rights. I mean, look at what we just, saw in Georgia. These atrocities, like the voting rights, the, just taking away, constantly chipping away at our value. I find personally, not only are these things chipping away at our value, they also leave me with, and I'm sure you too, like, how much more of my own personal morality am I going to be forced to sell out? And, I can't sit with that. You can't sit with that. And that's why we're in this fight, to hopefully get all of our friends and neighbors in our communities to realize that there is so much value in our voice, and that is something that nobody can take from us. What if our government actually worked for its people? And, well, Spencer brought up a story the last couple of weeks ago we met, and this has really impacted me. I've told this story a lot, and I may have even told it to you, but when he and I have talked a lot about, we just can't understand, but we want to be empathetic and hopefully help people access the knowledge that they need to make good decisions for themselves. But, we talk constantly about voting against our own self-interest. So the story is that a newlywed couple were going to celebrate Thanksgiving for the first time. And so the wife gets the turkey out and she sets it on the table and splits the turkey in half and puts it in one small pan and another small pan and bakes it. And she gets it out, and the husband says, I mean, it looks great, but why do we do a turkey like this? And she's like, I don't know. That's how Mom does it. And so I said, well, let's call your mom and ask. So they call Mom, and Mom says, yeah, I don't know. That's how Grandma does it. That's how we've done it. And so Mom calls Grandma. And, Mom, why do we put the turkey in two small pans and cut it in half? And, I don't know. That's how my mom did it. So they called Great Grandma, and Grandma, why do we do that? And she said, I don't know why you guys do, but I couldn't afford one big pan. And it's like, I think some of this need to identify with a party and stay so committed to pulling, a straight ticket or voting red or, voting blue just one way. And in this area, we see predominantly red voting. We do. Voting red, and we can't deny that. But why? I mean, that is, I think, our job is within our community to not present it to like, why, because we feel you're stupid, but why are you voting in the manner that you're voting when we can connect the dots and show you this is the party that is causing all of this harm.
Correct.
I would like to go back and talk a little bit about the rural conference that Michaela and I went to. It was a Indiana University rural conference hosted at French Lick for 2 days, and it was well, we anticipated it would be hosted by mostly rural people who experience our lives and have some ideas for change for us, and how we can keep people accountable with the happenings within our communities. And I got to say that I left that situation feeling very disheartened. For instance, I'm so tired of the gaslighting. Like, I cannot take any more of the gaslighting. So we could break out into groups, and they had like the water people there, the water professionals that are tracking and protecting our drinking water, and talking about the aquifers and how these data centers will come into play, and all this. So we had the breakout session with the water people, and then we also did another breakout session with solar and using sheep to graze the solar fields on farm ground. And I believe in solar, and I want solar, but I want solar on warehouses, not on our farm ground. So those two areas were of interest to both Michaela and I. And the water people, they gave us some statistics and facts about, how Indiana, how our water is and the process. And they talked about IDEM some. But in the middle of the conversation, as we're all concerned about our water and trying to be good stewards of our water, the water people say, well, don't oppose a data center just to oppose. They may bring something good. And I mean, right there, I was like, I can't accept this.
I'm not a doctor, but how much of our body is comprised of water? We have to put good water into our body. We can't not have it.
Yes. And so then, we could talk about like the essential things that we need. And so just like water, like all of, we're here in this fight for running for House District 60 because we want change. And you and I are seriously impacted by the Google data center that's come to Monrovia. And so, going into that room, we already feel like, Michaela and I already felt like we're kind of holding on to a fire extinguisher, and we don't know which direction to go with it because we feel like our community is on fire. And to have the people that are supposed to protect our water be like, well, don't get yourself in such an uproar over it. And it was just like, ah. And then we went to the sheep grazing and the solar farms and our farm fields. And the people presenting, they are solar farmers themselves, and they do run sheep on it. And so they talked about some of the problems that the sheep have because in Indiana, we like to seek a lot of sheep from like Colorado. However, this is not the correct environment for Colorado sheep, so they struggle a lot with their feet. So that becomes a bit of an issue. And at the end of it, they talked about a halal diet. And, I'm thinking, we're in rural life, and we do have some immigration within our rural communities, and we do need to be considerate about culturally correct food.
Absolutely.
But them talking about the halal diet was they happened to have one professor from Franklin that wanted to come out and dress a sheep and, use it for his, they don't have a big, customer base for that. But, we have that place here in Hazelwood that does that every Friday. And that guy has been in business for a long time. He has several cultural seekers that come out on Fridays and they do their animals. And so I went up to the solar farm folks and said, I live in Monrovia. I have a coffee shop in Monrovia and Cloverdale. And I said, you look really familiar. And he said, yeah, I was the developer for the solar farm in Cloverdale. And I said, oh, so not only are you a farmer for solar, you also work in the industry. Oh, yeah. I said, oh. I said, Hannah Bailey is my campaign manager. And his eyes kind of went. Because, she was
she was
huge impact on why the solar farm is not happening in Cloverdale. And now they have a moratorium. So at least for the next year. But, that to me is a conflict of interest.
Yes.
Like you have, what you're saying is are rural people. And I'm not saying that they're not rural. But the reason that they became solar farms in farm ground heaven, Franklin, and they're running sheep on it, is not because they're really doing a lot with the sheep.
No.
They're hoping that they'll make it to a meat market at some point, that we might start eating more sheep than we do, but that's not really heavy in our diet. Mm-mm. And they have sheep that they don't produce wool because it's easier maintenance for them. So the sheep are just really lawnmowers. Mm. And then my question is, I know we need more electricity, obviously. But if we know how many warehouses are projected for the United States, we've seen the map. Mm-hmm. So why are we not asking for every new warehouse to be solar ready? So that we can, when we drive by a warehouse, it's not like we ever look at a warehouse and go, wow, that's pretty. I mean,
right.
When you drive by a warehouse, you just kind of keep on rolling.
You just keep going.
So what would aesthetically be wrong with putting solar on every warehouse that we have moving forward and keeping solar out of our farm ground so that we can continue to produce food and fuel?
And we could put solar on our houses.
Yes. The tone outside of Monrovia is that we're just a bunch of rural dumb people and we let Google come in and we didn't really have a fight. And it's like, that's a little bit true.
It's a little bit true.
But what they're not understanding is that we didn't know about it.
I think we trusted our elected officials to do what was best for us, and that backfired because we didn't hold them to the transparency standards that we should have. Mm-hmm. We didn't continue to ask the questions. We didn't continue to show up to the meetings. And that's where that little bit is our fault. Mm-hmm. But when I trust you to keep your word, to have my best interest at heart, I expect you to do that. Just, that's what we teach our children, right? Like, you lost my trust, so now you can't ride 3 doors down to your friend's house because instead of riding on the sidewalk, you decided to ride on the street. Right. So now you have to build that trust back up. Yes. Well, I don't know anybody in Monrovia that trusts our elected officials currently. No. Because they have completely broken our trust. Yeah.
And it's not just the Monrovia officials, it's the Morgan County officials. And, the thing that I think is important to keep to the forefront is that, Monrovia residents didn't really know that this was happening until 2 weeks before it was happening. Mm-hmm. So we had 2 weeks to try to build opposition. And, in that first week, we're at first shocked and trying to, gather some information and some people to figure out, what is our next move. And that's not fair. That is
it's not fair.
That's not what a community is supposed to be about. That we can't trust our elected officials. So yeah, the transparency in our campaign has to be. We have to let people believe and know that when we tell them something, that that's absolutely what we mean. And hopefully by being, here for the last 8 years and, running business as we do.
Has it been 8 years?
Yeah.
Man, okay.
Yeah. Hopefully, we can get that message across. I do believe that Hoosiers are very resilient. And going back to the Indiana University rural event that I went to, they had some community organizers. One guy was from Chicago, one was from Wisconsin, and they were liberal arts, people, and they were working on bringing more art life to rural areas. And so they went through kind of their process and what they were doing to help rural communities. And they talked about, they were very surprised that Hoosiers rank number 2 in volunteerism. That shocked me.
Mm-hmm.
So we rank number 2 in volunteerism. Like the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Kiwanis clubs, Lions clubs. I mean, they were given like 22,000 volunteers here, 48,000. I mean, like it was kind of, I was astonished. And, IU wants to stay nonpartisan, and really they're probably a little more that way. But an older gentleman got up and asked, he said, and I thought this was such a beautiful question, and they couldn't answer it. He said, I find it ironic that Hoosiers rank second in volunteerism and second to last in voting. And there has to be a correlation. And so I thought about that for a while, and I'm like, gosh, yeah. And then Michelle brought up, we talked about, it is really positive to hear what volunteerism we have here in our Hoosier state. And Michelle said, what's the difference between a volunteer and forced labor? And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. See, Hoosiers are so resilient, and especially in rural life, we feel like nobody has us. Mm-hmm. Nobody's protecting us. So we'll just volunteer and do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's it. I mean, rural people have been left out. Mm-hmm. So they are voting red because that's what great-grandma did. Mm-hmm. That's what great-grandpa did. And then it kind of went on, and they've been kind of imprinted with that. Mm-hmm. And we're not getting out trying to touch them to say how much value and how important you are to Hoosier success. Mm-hmm. Rural people are Hoosiers. That's who we are. Mm-hmm. Of course, we have lots of, fine cities, but, our rural space, man, and it's like, okay, so we need to unpack that. How do we rank number 2 in positivity as far as volunteerism, and we rank number 51? Is it 50? How many states are there? 52?
48.
48. God, I'm way off. 48.
49th would be second to last.
49. So we're ranked 49th in voting. And, I think this could be a slogan that we could use. We need you to get enough fire under you, the same amount of fire that you have for your kids' T-ball, mm-hmm. as civic engagement. Find that and you'll go vote. Mm-hmm. I shared on my personal social media the other day that Google donated $200,000 to the Monrovia FFA program. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the biggest donations to an FFA program. And on the surface, that looks really great. Mm-hmm. And it is a good first step. Mm-hmm. But what I think is important, and what I think that we continue to kind of tuck our head under the rug and not really want to look in the mirror and be honest. So, because I will always continue to oppose Google. But I will work across the Nile.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we need to be able to make some deals, and we need to make some concessions in order to work together. So we just right now need to navigate our way through that. But what I think is very important, as we have like things like the correspondent blasting that Google donates $200,000 to the Monrovia FFA program. That's good, and that's a good first step. But what truly happened was when that farm was bought, it was already planted. And as Michael knows, and you know, that Google has numbered several homes, 1, 2, 3, that are just going to be demolished. Fine homes. So we know that they have wasted a lot, and they're asking us to waste our resources that we don't feel comfortable with. And that's why we're opposing. So they did give $200,000, but that field was already planted with crops, and Google would have been happy just to turn those crops over into the ground. However, the program director and the farmer spoke with Google and said, how about, instead of wasting the crops, that we could then donate the proceeds of the crops to the FFA program. So the $200,000 gift to the Monrovia FFA program was, this time, Google did not waste resources, and they used the money that was the profit from the crops that were harvested, and they gave that profit to Monrovia FFA. Google has not given anything from Google's company to the community of Monrovia. What Google has done to date for Monrovia is give them $200,000 from the harvest from that field, and they have forced us to bring in power that is going to consume 400 more acres at least of farm ground for the Google data center. And we don't know how those rates are going to affect our community. And they are robbing at least 9 million gallons of water a day, while they're bringing in 169 diesel backup generators that we did not know about until recently. And they still don't know how any of this is going to work, if it's going to be open or closed loop. And they don't even have approval from the IRUC, the Indiana Utility Regulatory Company.
IURC, yeah.
So Google, on this project that they've already broken ground and destroyed our community, to date does not have approval from the regulatory committee. But we are asked to give up our essentials, water, electricity, and our affordability for our rural life, for something that is non-essential, that they don't have a concrete plan, and they don't even have approval to do all this. But as community members, here we are trying to figure out what we're up against, how we move forward, and what kind of life we build moving forward with the potential of Google being our neighbor, and how we don't lose our rural roots. And man, that's what we're up against. But Google did not come up off any money. They gave harvest money.
I think that is a really important point that people don't always understand.
Yes.
In transparency. It is great that Google gave that harvest money to the FFA program. And I'm really glad that the FFA program can continue to flourish and have more programming, and they've got some really great stuff coming up. But Google didn't give that money.
Right.
Google gave the profits of something that was already done before they bought it.
And don't you think
And that's one side of the story. Like, you always have to look at both sides and what's actually happening.
Yes.
And that's where transparency in politics comes in.
Yeah, and that's why it is so important for me to continue to be transparent, for
Agreed.
you to continue to be transparent, for us to see these things all the way through from the bottom to the top. And the last thing and this would probably be a good way to end this. When we talk about the irony of all this, like, okay, Google, you gave $200,000 of harvest money that you didn't turn over into the ground and just waste. And you're doing that because you just robbed our essential farm ground that is crucial for our food source, for our fuel source. But, like, to me, it's like Google doesn't feel good about this either. So let's just think about the irony of this. So they give the harvest money to the FFA program, the Future Farmers of America, when here we have big tech robbing all of our farm ground and our resources and the essentials that it takes for humanity to survive.
I agree.
I mean, that's almost like Google going, I just spit in your face, but here, take this and go away. No, you're not. I mean, yes, is it good that they gave that money and they didn't waste it? But is it kind of an oxymoron that you're donating to a Future Farmers of America, and here we may not have any future farms if you keep doing the shit you're doing?
Right.
Sorry.
Our democracy says that we are such great and powerful people that we are to govern ourselves at the local, state, and federal level, and government is